allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. All right, first item on the agenda is agenda approval.
Mr. Chair, I think we have two items to add today. Eric, you want to add the item relative to the Pro West upgrades, the GIS upgrades? Okay, so item 8B. And then on your desk, you have a copy from me, which I would make number 9A and then bump the other item down relative to the variance permit at Deep Lake Park.
Mr. Chair, I'll move for approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Any public comment this morning? Hearing none. Looking for approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
Steve? Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mike, county employee rec.
Good morning.
Morning.
For county employee recognition today in the Highway Department, we have Derek Rice, Engineering Technician 3, is recognized for 5 years of service on April 12th. In Human Services, Jessica Reed, Social Worker, began the full-time position on April 20th. John Wyzek, Transit Driver, is recognized for 10 years of service on April 8th. In Natural Resource Management, Robert Walsh, Parks Maintenance Worker, began the full-time seasonal position on April 20th. In the Sheriff's Department, Kayla Berg, Correctional Officer, began the full-time position on April 9th. And in Solid Waste, Stephen Wolf, Solid Waste Attendant, is recognized for service from June 17th, 2021 to April 15th, 2026.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
All right, jumping ahead, highway and survey.
Good morning. A couple items, and then I do have some department updates very quick after. The first item would be to approve the quotes for our county maintenance project, 292601, which is our pavement marking. We received 2 quotes for this. Centerline's a lot out of Edina, Minnesota was the low quote, and they were $86,523.49.
I'll make a motion to approve the low quote.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Do you know how many miles approximately?
Oh, I don't off the
Okay.
top of my head.
That's fine.
Okay, count them quick.
Oh, that's fine.
The next one is also a striping project. This is for our District 2 project using HSIP money. It's SB 088072004. It's in conjunction with Beltrami County and Lake of the Woods County. And this one, we had 3 bidders on, and the low bidder again was Sterline's a lot out of Edina for $234,042.63.
Is there anything, I guess, for everybody's knowledge, anything different between these 2 quotes?
Yes,
The
yep.
purpose, I guess, and the
Yeah.
application.
Yeah, it's a funding difference. First of all, this is federal money, the HSIP dollars, and then the other one is county dollars that we use. This one, to use this money, we're required to put a 6-inch fog line down, the white stripe on the road. It has to be 6 inches wide to meet the MNMUT, I forget what that stands for, but traffic control. So there's more requirements for this one. The county one is more of a maintenance. We're fixing stripes that have worn off or that aren't visible anymore. And it could be 4, 6, Centerline, Edgeline, all the stripes on the road is what we're doing with the maintenance one.
Okay, thank you.
Is all that money spent in Hubbard County?
Which one?
All that money applied to Hubbard County?
The federal project? No, Hubbard County's share was about, I don't know, I wanna say 50,000. Our actual cost of county dollars is only $3,500, and the rest is HTIP. Beltrami is a lot bigger county, they get the majority of the funds when these projects happen.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the question, because I was wondering how come one was 200 and some odd thousand, the
Yeah,
other was
yeah.
86.
A lot more miles, a lot more, gallons on the federal one versus our county one, but,
When you mentioned the other counties, I thought it was that, but I thought I'd ask it
Yeah.
just to make sure.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Awesome. And then, oh, yeah, just a couple updates. We have 2 projects left to bid, our CASA 30 and Reconstruct, and then CASA 38 Bridge. Both of them are approved and ready to go. It's just now timing of getting the packets together and getting them onto our online bidding service. So close, getting close. We're planning on starting the CASA 40, 50, and 86, which are all tied together around June 1st. There's some subcutting to take place first to fix some grade issues, and then they'll come through and start the reclaim. That one's, there's no detour, so it's under traffic, slight delays to people. Otherwise, some funding updates, some awards that we've gotten recently. State Park Road Account, Clay Township had us apply for them on their Jackfish Drive, which goes out to the Mantrap Lake. There's a campground, DNR, and then the boat access. They were awarded for a mill and overlay on that, about $140,000 that will construct this summer. Also, LRIP funds were given out, awarded. We were successful in ours on CASA 23 for the project that we plan next year, Trunk Highway 64 to Ibis Drive, $1.3 million, which is about half of the project cost, so that helps immensely. And then IIJA, the federal safety planning, the Safe Streets for All, they have a planning grant, which I applied for the Trunk Highway 34 and CASA 4 intersection. In conjunction with MnDOT, we're looking at doing some improvements, probably 2032 we're hoping for, but this is to hire a consultant to do the grant writing for those processes. Since it's federal, it's more competitive. It's awarded for $30,000, so working right now on getting a consultant on board to start that process, so.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your work. The 34 and 4, are you considering a roundabout?
That is the proposed improvement. We always want to take safety as the first
Yep.
consideration, and it's a high crash rate at that intersection. But also kind of to offset that is the speed that people are coming into town and also leaving town, that people kind of use it as a acceleration lane, and it shouldn't be, so we're hoping to kind of condense that too.
I have a question about, you mentioned 40, 50, and 86. Are you going to address the rough approaches to the bridge on 50?
Yes, yep, they're gonna be subcutting those approaches, so we'll do a fix, but 50 is on our bridge resolution to be replaced now,
okay.
so in the next, I would say 7 to 10 years, it'll be replaced, and then they'll fix the approaches on there permanently.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Environmental Services,
Oh, solid waste.
got time? I see something? Solid waste, yeah. Sorry, Josh. Looking at too many items here. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
All right, so the agenda item I have this morning is to review and approve a quote for program management services. So we issued an RFP for program management services for the additions and renovations to the Hubbard County Reuse Center and the construction of a new fabric storage building. These projects have been budgeted for 2026. Utilizing $758,000 in grant funding from the MPCA. And the preliminary construction cost estimates for the project that were identified in the RFP was $1,100,000. With that, the reuse center project was estimated at $850,000, and the fabric building project at $250,000. Our project timeline that we've reviewed previously, but we're looking to get started with the project management with this approval, and then begin engineering, design, and permitting from now through June, with bidding for construction around July. And then within this RFP, we outlined that we wanted construction to hit the August through December, end of December timeline. And there might be some items that go beyond that, some punch list items, but we really want to wrap it up by the end of December so we can meet our grant criteria and deadline of, I think it's June 30th of 2027. So we reached out and solicited quotes from two different companies, ICS out of Park Rapids and Stantec out of Plymouth. Stantec is our landfill engineer and consulting company. And ICS, we've worked with on different projects before and in the county in general. So ICS ended up submitting the only quote for $177,235. Stantec, we are working with them to submit a quote, but shortly before the deadline, they notified me and let me know they weren't going to be able to submit a quote. They didn't feel they would be able to commit all the resources to deliver the project. So my recommendation would be to approve the quote from ICS Consulting out of Park Rapids for $177,235 for this project management services.
Josh, does that seem like a reasonable quote?
Yeah, I mean, it was, we looked at preliminary estimates, through this planning process, and it's, I think around, it's less than what the preliminary estimates were, probably by the tune of about $20,000 roughly. So I think it is seems like a reasonable and in-line quote for the project.
Thank you. I guess I'll make the motion to approve the low quote.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Just a quick update. Just with our department, we're starting to, get busy and in the spring mode here, but we, last week we were able to do a demonstration on a trommel screen, which we ended up running some of our processed shingles and mulch through. And it was really kind of beneficial to see what that was able to accomplish. We were able to separate out a lot of the fines from our shingles and would help us not have to regrind our shingles into a smaller spec. So this summer and over the course of the rest of the spring here, we hopefully will have some good demonstration projects going to look at the benefits of using recycled shingles, incorporating that with crushed concrete. So that was just an interesting project that we worked on last week. And this week we're probably in the next couple days going to be colorizing our some additional mulch in the black and red. So we'll have black, red, and brown mulch available at the facility here too over the next couple weeks. So.
Are you going to have just plain natural mulch available?
Yep.
As well?
Yep.
Okay.
We have that too. So. And then our north project, transfer station project, is pretty much completed with the remodel project. That turned out well. So, you can stop in there and take a look if you're up in that area.
Did they meet the timeline?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. No,
I couldn't
everything was kind
remember what
of
the
right on
deadline
track.
was.
So.
Okay, all right, very good.
What kind of quantities is that mulch gonna be sold? I mean, can you get small amounts or?
Well, we'll have, initially we'll probably have a limited stockpile, but I mean, really they can purchase as much as they want. So we pretty much, I think we'll have a minimum charge on it, depending if you get less than a yard, but pretty much we'll do it by per yard increments. So
Did you reach out to the commercial folks in town?
I started to, over the winter, but we didn't really get too far into that, and, I kinda wanted to wait and see kinda how the full colorizing efforts went, and I think that's something we'll target for next year, so.
And volume, I would imagine, is gonna be a concern if you making agreements with.
Yeah, I think what we wanna focus on recycling for the mulch right now, or for colorizing, is the dried wood, like the pallet wood and dried lumber. And I think if we get into using a trommel in our operation, then we can look at getting into more of just the brush that comes in, and that would create a lot better end product, but, trying to separate out some of them fines, from that mulch, so. That's all I got, so thank you.
Josh? Well, we probably have enough time to do the Deep Lake Park before 9:30. Is she on? Environmental? Come up?
Deep Lake
We're-
Park was under Jeff.
Yeah, it's under 8B too.
No, no. It was Pro West was under.
Oh, we can do that. Come on up. Backwards. Morning.
Good morning. My apologies for the staple location, we have a new copier and it's got printer setting issues.
Yeah, and when you yell at it, it doesn't do any good because it just answers you back with that
Yeah.
computer. I was on the phone yesterday with somebody.
Oh.
Never did get a person.
So this item that we're adding this morning is a proposal from Pro West to do a server software update on our GIS server. This is something we've been doing annually. We want to try to keep our software relatively current, not be the most current software that's out there, but one or two versions back so that we're able to keep everything running, not have to do forklift updates on less frequent time periods. And the Pro West just got us the quote yesterday, so that's the reason for the late addition. They didn't realize that with the amount of the quote that it was going to require board approval, so that's the explanation behind the short notice. But Jack can answer any technical questions that you might have, but essentially it's just another update of our software on our server to keep everything current and running smoothly. And it is budgeted in the IT budget. The price would be just under $6,300.
For the year? I mean, for the project.
For the
So they're gonna
project.
bill it out as they are doing.
So it's scheduled for early May where they would do the work, and then upon the completion of the update, then they'd invoice us.
Is it gonna result in any downtime on the system?
Their estimated will be during the day downtime, and it's kind of like we did last year too. Last year we did in August, but the same thing where systems were down for 2 to 3 hours. If everything goes smoothly, 2 to 3 hours, but it could be up to 6 potentially. They've gotten these updates pretty down packed now, so it seems like the downtime gets smaller and smaller, but you can't predict that, so. So, yeah, as I've done in the past, I notify everyone, hey, we have downtime planning like 2 weeks ahead out, let people know this is happening, expect to have services down this day, so.
Yeah.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve. This site is widely used by the public and by the staff. And wouldn't have actually come to us except it's over $5,000. It's already budgeted, so.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All the same sign. Motion carries.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Just trying to manage time here. I don't know if we have time to get into the
Could start and
discussion yet. Maybe jump to.
We can start on this issue. I think the other issue is gonna take as much conversation as well, so I
So we'll
just,
start, we might have to pause at 9:30 for a bit to do the capital improvement public hearing.
Sure. So the other item I have for you is a ordinance amendment application. We received proposing to amend the shoreline management ordinance to allow a controlled access lot as a conditional use on natural environment classified lakes. The proposal was heard by the Planning Commission, who held a public hearing on the application, and after discussion, the Planning Commission's recommendation was to not take action on the application and leave the ordinance language as is, which currently has controlled access lots listed as a non-permitted use on all of our water body classifications.
So when I was reading through this, Eric, I can see why the landowners are frustrated. I'm just curious how this was missed for, I think it was 22 years and came to light now.
That can and does happen. You know, there's 28,000 parcels in the county, so it's not realistic to expect us to be aware of everything that occurs.
Yeah, I wasn't blaming you, other than I was wondering if, you know, was there a complaint, or was there?
What brought it to our attention was, if I recall correctly, a local attorney was asked to assist the owners out there with developing updates to their legal documents pertaining to the property, and so reached out to us with questions, and that led to us researching, as we do, to be able to respond. And that's when we identified that the use of the property as an access lot had commenced per some covenants that the developer recorded 20-some years ago, and they had never gone through the required conditional use permitting process at that time to establish an access lot.
I had listened to the planning commission meeting, and Tim Johnson brought up an interesting potential solution. You know, if me and several other people got together and bought a lake lot, and it was in all of our names, every one of us could go and use it. Why can't the people of this development disconnect themselves from having all their parcels in with this parcel, and have it by name instead of by parcel? You know, each one of them. In other words, they'd have to go and change the covenants with 100% agreement on all the owners, but have it in their names instead. And then they each would get taxed on that property by their name. And if they were to sell their individual parcel, they would also, if they want to get rid of their interest in this parcel, they'd have to go and sell that out too, separately from each other. I mean, would that be a potential solution?
Yes, and that was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting, that if they would separate ownership, the shared ownership of this lot from the ownership of the other lots in the development. So when you sell your back lot, for example, it doesn't have the interest in the access lot going with it. That is an option that they could pursue. My recollection was that they didn't seem to be interested in that, but that is an option.
Yeah, and also going along with that, so the Board of Adjustment talked about how it's up to those property owners to seek a solution that will work for them, whatever that is, because your department, if we would change the ordinance, it would be a can of worms opening up countywide, all kinds of, and it wouldn't even apply to an environmental lake. It would be, so.
Well, it used to. I mean, can you give us a little background on why we amended the ordinance in 15 to eliminate conditional access by CP?
Sure. So we had a couple access lots in particular that were located on Potato Lake that had conservation easements placed on them because they had a lot of wetland area along the shoreline. And then there started to be landowners that were impacting those wetlands, and so then the liability fell on the county to enforce the conservation easement. We weren't gaining anything by having those easements because the Wetland Conservation Act already offered protection of those areas. and have been other issues with access lots. They're required to have a homeowners association. That rarely is something that's developed or maintained internally to the level that it needs to be. There's also other issues with the difficulty for the county of monitoring and enforcing if an interest in the access lot is sold to a landowner or a party that it's not supposed to go to per the conditional use. Also issues with complaints about how many watercraft slips are on the docks, where the docks are located. So those were the factors that led to the board roughly 10 years ago choosing to amend the ordinance to strike that as a conditional use.
So going with what Tom was saying, the question about transferring it into their name, not attached to their lot, if that was to happen, could they use the lot as they have in the past then, if it was attached to their name? Would they be able to continue the use the way they had in the last 20 years or whatever it was?
Yeah, if the ownership interests in that lot are separated from the ownership of the interest of the other properties in the development, then yes, it'd be no different than if you and I together purchased a property and a lake lot and used it for having a dock and
Okay.
boat.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So, I'm kind of curious what everybody's opinion would be, about the request in particular, not this particular piece of property. Because you can see, I can see both sides of the coin here. I'm a little torn. We don't have a lot of lakeshore property left. If we want some growth in the county, this is one of those examples of something in the shoreline ordinance that might prevent some of that. Now, there may be good, valid reasons for doing that, so I'm kind of interested in what everybody's opinion is on that.
And that's where, because it's on an environmental lake, that makes a difference. Recreational lake or, one of those, I think it would be easier we'd probably still allow that.
It's currently not allowed, but based on the water classification and the type of lake that is typically a recreational development or a general development lake, they would be more suited to a controlled access lot.
And as you that read the Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission reports and all that, and minutes, I did speak out about, here these people have been paying property taxes on it for years. When they bought their other lot, they assumed that this was part of their lot, it's changed hands, these aren't the original owners and stuff like that. So it's not an easy thing to fix in a sense. We know the lot's there. The lot is there, it was created, and there has been ownership of it, and there's been property taxes paid on it. And then we find out that the paperwork wasn't properly done 22 years ago, and now that changes everything. In this instance, I wish there was something we could do easily for these people. It seems like right now their only options are to sell the lot or to somehow sell it back to themselves privately, but I'm sure that could maybe all be worked out. It doesn't sound like the lot was getting a lot of use. And with the pictures, I didn't go out and view it myself. But the pictures and that and everything on the website, it looks like it's a lot of wetland in front of it, but a small sliver, I guess would be like on the west side, south side kind of area. It's hard to, not knowing which way was north, I think it'd be mostly on the west side of the lot. Yeah, so it's not an easy solution, but that's why we have the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustments, because if everything was black and white, we wouldn't be needed for stuff like that. I guess if I was on the Planning Commission, I would have wanted to have find something to do. I probably would have voted no as far, or to try to do something, yes, to try to do something. But the question is, what do we do? How do we correct this? And then Tim Johnson on the Planning Commission brought up do we know how many more of these are out there? You know, is there one or two more, or is there dozens? And if we change the ordinance to allow this, then it could open up a lot of other areas to open up. And do we want that on a natural environment lake? So yeah, it's not an easy decision.
Since I was on the planning commission, I think 1998 or 1999, and through that time, I can recall only several of these. So this may not be as many as you might think. Maybe there was a lot previous to that, but not after that 98, 99.
Even though I share with what you're saying, Ted, but I don't think we're the solution. And so what Tom brought up is a solution, and it doesn't appear that it would be real costly. I have no idea, but the solution is for the landowners to figure out.
Yeah.
I agree with that from the Board of Adjustment. Because we have to go countywide.
Well, I would look at it from this time, the request is to change the ordinance
Right.
to basically undo what was done in 2015 and in 2015, and I would not be willing to go that far.
Right.
If I even entertain the idea of changing the ordinance, I would not allow this on a natural environment lake. I don't think it has any place on a natural environment lake. I may consider, you know, on a RD lake, we don't have any general development lakes except that little sliver on Capcona Bay, isn't it, over there? So it really doesn't affect us because we don't have much for general development, but,
Mr. Chair, should I remind you of the time?
oh yeah, thank you. So we're gonna have to take a little pause here in this discussion. We'll come back to it because we have a public hearing coming up. Thank you, Ted.
You're welcome.
We'll take a pause on the discussion on environmental services and move to the 5-year capital plan public hearing.
We need a motion to close the open meeting and open the public hearing.
Close.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, public hearing is open. Give a little background, Jeff.
I'm gonna open the item. 2022, the county passed a capital improvement plan for the purpose of identifying our long-range capital needs and to organize our deferred maintenance costs that we know that we have. The policy requires that we annually update the 5-year plan. We've reviewed this several times this spring, and the only thing that's changed in this from the ones that we've seen before is an identification of other capital projects that are dependent on bonding requests. So we know that we've talked about these, the Transit Garage project, the Deep Lake Park development, and the solid waste multi-county hub and spoke demolition landfill projects are not necessarily, the Transit Garage and the Deep Lake Park development are identified in here, but the solid waste hub and spoke project was not identified in here previously, and as I'm understanding, changes relative to legislation that affects capital improvement plans. In order to be considered for bonding at some point in the future, it's going to be required that those elements also be included in capital projects planning. So this is kind of a breakdown of projects by year. We know that the Transit Garage the project has been approved, pending funding being released for those types of projects. We know that the next time Deep Lake Park will go, Phase 2 application will go in this summer, and we would know before those projects would actually start when funding is available. Other than that, I would entertain questions, or if there's anybody from here from the public with comments or questions about the proposed plan.
Question on you go up to where you got those money, numbers, 2032 for, yeah, there they are, and for, air handler and boilers. I mean, you're spending that money in 2025, or, yeah, 2025. I mean, does that have to be allotted again that soon? That's a lot of money.
We're not spending that money in 2025. I apologize for the reading. The year that's, the column that's not assigned is the projects and their identified price on the plan. And then when they're actually placed in a year, that's when they're actually scheduled to be.
Okay.
Very good point. No, we're not spending it in 2025 and then again in 2031. We identified it on the plan as needed improvements, and we're placing it on 2031 on the project schedule. And one point to make there is you'll see that 2028, 29, and 30 are pretty light on projects. And that's because assuming that we continue to set aside the money for capital improvements, that we would set aside money and be able to largely pay cash for those air handling units and boilers. And you can see proposed projects of $4.2 million that year and funds available of $3.6 million that year. We have options to get those projects done and identify the bids and know how to budget for that. As we get closer, we can close that gap. But it was intentional to show that in the preceding years that we don't have a lot of projects going on because we wanted to save money to be able to pay cash for those deferred maintenance items.
Yes, I see how it's written now. Okay.
So in light of Jeff's estimate of what our potential unfunded mandates are that we heard from the 2 to 6 million, I was reading through this yesterday, the language, and to refresh my memory, and this is all fluid. And so I don't have a problem approving it. This weekend, I started actually looking at property values in the places that I represent. And I'm not willing to increase the levy for the amount that would be needed to cover the unfunded mandates without severe cuts, because I don't want to raise the levy that much. So I'm in favor of this with just an asterisk that this might have to be greatly adjusted depending on what the state does.
Bring it back in the fall? Yeah. We'll see on that one.
We wouldn't bring it back in the fall. This is just a plan.
Yeah, so it's fluid. We can adjust it every year.
Every year we have to review the plan,
Okay.
and then every year you have to incorporate the projects on the next year's actual operational budget. So this doesn't commit to spending any money. This is just a long-range forecast for that. So we would not bring this back in the fall. We'd review it again next year. But at this point in time with the public hearing, I think the item is if there's anybody here to speak with comments from the public related to this item, we can continue to discuss before the board takes action on this item yet today.
What are we're looking at, a boiler and an air handler replacements. Do we know what the condition of the ones in this facility are?
We replaced the primary boilers
Okay.
a year and a half ago.
Okay, all right.
I caution you though, because this is a capital plan that, while it's fluid, if you defer it.
I know.
It does not get you more levy dollars
No, it
unless you start taking your capital money and start using it for your levy, which then it's gone. You know,
And we still have to do
your whole
work.
plan will fall apart then.
Yeah.
Your whole capital plan is you're gonna be starting from scratch. Yeah, so you really don't wanna do that. I mean, that's like an emergency break glass.
That's
type
a,
of-
worst case scenario.
That you don't have a choice, because you won't get that capital funding back without a major levy increase.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, did you want to ask if there is any public comment?
Yeah. Any public comment from anybody here? Anybody else have any other questions?
Then I would suggest we close the public hearing
Yep.
and reopen the regular meeting, and then we could finish conversation about this item and take action.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and reopen the meeting.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then we'll go to Administrator number 9B.
I got finished.
We can finish discussion on this one and take action on this, and then we can jump back to Eric's item.
Any other discussion on the capital plan under 9B? Because we'd need a motion to approve it.
I'll make the motion.
Ms. Ted, I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, let's jump back to Eric. Environmental Services. The question I was gonna ask Eric before we pause, because, again, I was saying, if we were so inclined to consider amending the ordinance, I certainly would not be in favor of including environmental lakes. You know, a CUP would be required for all the other classification of lakes. But my question to you is kind of a hypothetical. Let's assume we have, is there any other method inside the ordinance that would allow such a function to happen? I'm thinking along the fact that there's not a lot of properties available on the lakes. If somebody wants to develop a property and expand a property in a manner that would require conditional access, it probably would be a resort. And what I'm thinking is, like, if we had a large enough resort that had enough property 1,000 feet back from the lake shore and wanted to put a development in, could they do it in a manner that allowed those people that lived in that development access through the resort to the lake?
Not if it would be a residential development on the back lot area. Is that the controlled access lot definition also includes easement access of that sort, so that wouldn't be an option. The only way to do that would be as if the resort expanded, had additional rental units that weren't directly on the lake in the first tier, then the ordinance allows those folks to still have access to the lake through the resort's docking systems.
So based on the way our ordinance is written, I'm looking at an example like down there, Alexandria.
I was just thinking of the same
They
thing.
have, I think it's Lake, what's the lake to the east of La Hamadou? Is it Victoria or Geneva?
I'm not sure.
It'd be on the east side of 29. Anyhow, they have the golf course over there, and they have a housing development around the golf course. And then they have a lake access lot for the residents of that development to use and access the lake. And they have probably about 6 or 8 slips down there for the people to use and a landing and stuff for them to go down and access the lake. So under our ordinance, we couldn't do that at all here anywhere? Yeah.
I know somebody else that lives in Douglas County that has a back lot on a lake, and they're in a HOA.
Mhm.
So they own their building, but they don't own the land, but they do have lake access.
Yeah, but if we had conditional access lots, a situation like that would potentially be doable.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets into if the development's if you did a planned unit development, then the ordinance allows a mechanism for saying you get a docking system and a number of permanent watercraft slips that equals the amount of dwellings that are allowed in the first tier. And then the units in the back tiers would be able to have day use access of the lake with the PUD. But if you're dealing with a back lot that doesn't have any lake frontage and they want access, a controlled access lot would be the only mechanism for accomplishing that.
Yeah, and I get the argument against it, because I mean, all of a sudden, if you have a 100-unit development in the back, you know, that's potential more pressure on the lake from that conditional access. But I think if one was intellectually honest and reviewed these situations around lake areas, you will find out that there's never that much heavy pressure from the access on the lake. I mean, I could sit there and watch that down in Alexandria, and I'm lucky if I see, on average, probably 2 or 3 people go down there a day. you know, obviously on a heavy holiday weekend or something, it would be different, but, so the question I have before the board is, this is an example that I think we've discussed before. This is an example where our ordinance is really super strict and potentially hampers us about having any more growth in the county that would help with tax capacity. You know, you can argue that you're trying to protect the lake, but does it really drive that much more traffic on the lake? I'm not so sure that the answer to that question is an absolute yes. And you know, what's that trade-off? And you would have control because you would have it going through a CUP process. So when they bring up the question of amending the ordinance, this is the type of thing that they're exactly speaking to. In this case, you know, if we went down that road, it wouldn't affect this case because I wouldn't be in favor of doing it on a natural environment lake. Those are definitely more sensitive with the types of shorelines they have. Just my 2 cents on it anyhow, or
No, I agree.
feels about that.
I've been in Alexandria and also the Brainerd area had resorts, and I'd be sitting in their conference center and looking out at the lake, and wow, in Hubbard County, we wouldn't be able to do this.
Yeah.
But they got it there. So if you want a good balance between, in development, I mean, maybe there are some areas that we are a little too strict. We just, you know, it'll be worth looking at.
And maybe that's part of the solution for the unfunded mandates by increasing tax capacity in that manner. I mean, it wouldn't be immediate, but
Increasing the tax capacity doesn't generate more levy dollars. It just relieves some of the pressure when we have to raise the levy.
I agree, it doesn't
Yep.
generate, but
Just-
it
just to
divides
clarify.
it more. Yeah.
I had one resort owner who wanted to know what areas in our ordinance are more strict than state minimums. And so Eric put together a summary, a really good summary, and I passed it on to him. Haven't heard back from him yet, but, you know, I said, when you go take a look at this, and if you see things that you would like to change that would benefit resorts, you know, let me know about it, and I'd bring it up to the board, but haven't heard from him yet on it.
Were there a number of things that we're a lot more strict on?
Well, one of them is setback. The state minimum is 75 for a recreational development,
Septic system setback, yep,
and then ours is 100.
150.
Well, he can administratively go to 75, correct?
In certain cases, if the lot physically isn't able to meet the setback.
Yeah. So would they kind of thread the needle on that one, that kind of, if you have the ability to be 150 feet back, that's where it's gonna be. If you really have a hardship that you can't make it administratively, ESO can make some decisions. So I kind of like that, because you're really gonna have to, that's probably the number one potential polluter of the lake, is the drain field anyhow.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my question I brought up, because if there's any interest in this, the amendment was brought up. You know, now's the time to consider it. Or do you wait till somebody shows up one day and wants to put a big development in, and now you have to consider it again? Or
Well,
they may not even consider it because
I think
they
looking at
feel
it,
they can't.
looking at it and maybe comparing to what some of the other surrounding counties have for not for natural environmental lakes, but for the recreational development, and try to thread that needle, so to say, and blend everything together so that it may accommodate those types of things, but it's also still offering adequate protection. So I would say that could be looked into, yes, and then maybe brought back for future discussion purposes.
Eric, are there any other solutions short of modifying the ordinance to accomplish what the requesters of this change have brought forward?
Well, yeah, there's the option that was discussed of separating the ownership of that lot from the ownership of the other lots in the development. They could all agree to sell the lot to someone else as a lake lot. It could be divided and made a part of one or more of the adjacent lots to enlarge them. So there's a few options available, but
But there's nothing as a county we can offer for an option.
no, those would all be,
Yeah, I mean, but beyond changing the ordinance, that's the only thing that we.
If this were a recreational development lake, would that change the options available?
no.
No, okay. That's one question I wanted to
So that's
ask.
the hypothetical. Do we want to look at the request here and say, you know, okay, while we may consider changing the ordinance, it isn't gonna affect this case because we wouldn't do it for a natural environment lake, but because the request was made, do we consider allowing conditional access lots on recreational development lakes by CUP?
Maybe send it back to the planning commission, you know, but to say not for environmental lakes, but send it back for them to discuss on recreational lakes.
So I see this as two issues. We have to vote on this issue, and then that's a separate issue.
But this issue is asking specifically to amend the ordinance.
To allow the use again on natural environment lakes only.
Yeah.
The actual recommendation is to accept the planning commission's recommendation to not amend the ordinance or any other direction from the board.
Do you want the gentleman to speak?
Hi.
That gentleman's asking to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is one of the landowners.
You tell us, yeah, and then tell us your name and.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have got up on the public hearing part of it, but, so my name is Jeremiah Johnson, and I was in front of the Planning Commission a few weeks ago. We're with the Crow Wing Highland Association. So I knew coming into this, the pathway was to submit the application to amend the ordinance, and on a natural environment lake, which I'm even in, you know, as far as doing that on a natural environment lake, I get it why you wouldn't want to do that. I kind of knew that it was a long shot, if at all, for it to get approved. But that was the pathway we were told to take in order to move forward with this process. So we did, paid the application fee, came to the Planning Commission meeting, and now we're here today. So I've reached out to several people, Tom, including you, and Eric. I've been in contact with you. I even reached out to John Olson, county attorney. And in his email, he said he looked into it, and he, I guess, and I'll just read the quick part of his email that, you know, whether it has any, you know, weight or not, but he made it sound like that back in 2002, that the recording of documents did not require county zoning approval, possibly for this reason and others. The need for a conditional use permit for a controlled access lot was never addressed or enforced. So then I guess my question is, when Taylor Investment was putting this development together, and I would assume that they would have had to have gotten approval from the county to do this development. Is that not correct? Like, to go in front of the planning commission to provide, you know, what they wanted to do, and then it would have to get approval? Is that the process they would have had to go through?
It went to the planning commission.
Okay, so they,
I'm sure it went to the board too after that. It didn't, okay.
But they never did anything on that lot? Never applied for the permit on that conditional
no idea.
access lot?
so it sounds like, so in the covenants it said in this, sorry.
Well, I was questioning Eric, so if you went back and actually looked at the signed documents, the plat was approved. It was never approved?
It did not go through a plat. There was a preliminary plat application that was submitted,
Okay,
and the only documentation we have of that application is the planning commission meeting minutes, where there's a one-line statement that says the applicant withdrew the application. So we don't know why
oh, interesting.
And then a year later, a certificate of survey was done for the lot layout, and then lots started to be sold, and the department started issuing permits for homes and septic systems in the year and two following. And there is no other documentation available to explain why that's how things transpired.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that was, I thought we actually had a.
Yeah,
site
no,
plan.
no, yeah, I understand, and I don't, so I mean, and I guess, and then it goes back to the point of, okay, so the lot was created, there's 13 owners that have a shared interest in this lot, who were under the assumption, you know, with the covenants that are recorded, that, you know, we have an established controlled use lot. Obviously, there was no conditional use permit obtained at that time, and, you know, 20-some years goes by, and then, to Eric's point, an attorney contacted, you know, the county to see about, you know, changing the legal description, and then that's when this came up. Now, the lot was created with 13 owners. Everyone's been paying taxes on that property. We just purchased our property 3 years ago. And I contacted our treasurer at that time, Todd Balsiger, and he informed me of the property, that the county's aware of the property, that we pay taxes on the property. Anybody who owes homeowner association dues at the time of their sale on their property, the association gets their dues, and the county has worked with the association on that. So this lake lot, which, I mean, most people who have a lake lot use the lot. I mean, they use it for lake access, and that's what, you know, most of the owners have used it for since acquiring their lots. Not all the owners use it, but myself, I did use it, and I'd like to continue using it, and I just want to do it, you know, the legal way. I don't want to be in violation of, you know, this ordinance. And so I guess, you know, maybe a question is, I mean, if Taylor dropped the ball on this, then that's, you know, the investment company. I get that. But on the other hand, I'm kind of wondering, you know, where was there any oversight on this particular lot with 13 owners, knowing that, you know, they have a lake lot and they're using that lot, but yet, so then it's used as a controlled access lot, which with no permit. But if we go to sell the lot to, say, 13 owners, and then we all use the lot, and we all have an interest in it, but we can sell that interest to someone else who doesn't have a property, say, on Crescent Ridge Trail, I mean, is that not still a controlled lot, or I mean, what's the definition of controlled lot? I guess I'm curious on what that entails, because we would still have 13 people on one lot using that lot. I don't know if that.
I don't know, what's the answer to that? I mean, that's shared owners of one lot. I mean, it's like a big family.
Right.
If you sold it to somebody outside, I don't think that would really matter per se. I don't know what they would do with it, except come up and use it like anybody that's.
Like we're using it right now, or?
They theoretically could do that, correct?
Yeah, that's what we just had previously discussed.
Yeah, but ironically, we're trying to protect the natural environment lake. And if property owners decided they were gonna sell their lot to Tom, Dick, and Harry
13
over
other
here,
people.
So,
it would increase the traffic.
Yeah.
so I guess my question to that would be, this ordinance was changed in 2015, and there was language in the planning commission about, you know, being grandfathered in had we had a conditional use permit at that time. And I don't know if that would have been the case, if we would have been grandfathered into this. Knowing that we probably weren't going to get this thing amended, I was hoping that maybe there would be another pathway aside from, you know, saying, oh, sell the property, donate the property, you know, figure it out in that regard. Is there any way to grandfather us in, even though, I mean, obviously we're 10 years past, you know.
So you could put restrictions on the property ownership a lot. You could do whatever you wanted to. It's a private sale, and you could put restrictions on that. You know, ownership has to stay with people in that area or whatever.
Yeah, I understand that, but isn't that controlled use still, or?
Is it? it's still not tied to the parcel, it's tied to the name.
Yeah, you're not,
It's a
you're not
technicality.
making a clear enough distinction then between ownership.
That would require more of a legal opinion than on that scenario that he's speaking about.
You know, I see, because of the change in the ordinance, the desire to try to protect against certain things, but it opened up another set of can of worms.
So I'm looking at the GIS site, because I'm trying to find do you know what you pay a year for property tax?
I'm not sure what we pay for that, for the lot. I think it's fixed into our property taxes, so I'm not sure what, like,
'Cause it looks like it's $1,800 total, and so then that's just divided out amongst all of you.
Also, one other question, Eric, just in the spirit of
$2,100.
moving this along, I mean, if we wanted to look at this again later, the commissioners could bring this up any time as far as amending an ordinance, anything in the ordinance. We don't need any public request to amend it. We could choose to amend it.
Correct.
if we want. Okay. So we could revisit this another time too, if, not this particular issue, but.
right, yeah, and I
ordinance if
get
we're
it.
interested in
You would
conditional
want to
access
amend
lots.
a natural environment lake. I completely get that, I mean, I was
So
just,
the only option, it looks like you probably really have is the one described that
Okay.
that Tom Johnson had mentioned too, and then, and I don't know, you know, if the lots when you purchased them were misrepresented to you, you might have some potential action against whoever sold you the lot, but that's for you guys to decide.
So I have a question, I'm just interested. So is there a minimum price that the lot has to go for? So if everybody here, if you guys decide to do that and you all paid $1,
You just got the legal fees. and
Yeah, you just got the legal fees.
Cost of the process
Yeah.
to do it.
So you'd have a $1 interest in it, you know?
And then what's that doing for us?
Well, it was the idea that everybody who currently is, every parcel that's listed on that lot, now you, instead of the parcel being tied to your back parcel, you sell that lot to each other individually, 1/13 of it, and it's under different owner, it's a separate ownership then.
Technically, it allows you to continue to use
Use
it
it.
as you are, and it still isn't compliant with the language of the ordinance.
Obviously, I don't think you could put 13,
My property borders that lot,
Okay,
so.
based on the size of the lot, you'll be limited on using it similar to what you did. You'd probably just be able to put one dock out. You're not gonna be able to put 13 docks out.
no, and it's, yeah,
And
okay.
then it would be in the name of the association, I'm assuming Crow Wing Highland Association would own the lot.
no,
No,
each
no,
individual would
each-
own the lot.
Each individual would own it, yeah.
Then it would be an access lot.
Yeah.
Because if you look at all these properties, that's listed as the owner.
Each parcel is
Each
listed.
parcel is
Yeah,
listed.
okay.
At the same time, you would need to amend your covenants. Because it mentions the access lot, which obviously you can't use, but amend the covenants and then agree 100% to
Yeah.
sell it to each other.
Yeah,
The
you
trick
have to
is
get
you
your
have to
legal
all
advice on
agree.
how to structure that
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah.
That's the only way it looks like around it.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, appreciate the input.
I'm sorry, I wish we could just grandfather you in.
I'm sorry?
I wish we could just grandfather you in, but because we don't have any documents,
Yeah.
we can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't know, you know, like if I was in your shoes, and I'm not giving advice, do whatever you want, but, whatever
Yeah,
that co-
but, I mean,
whatever
I-
that process costs to get done, you may have recourse against whoever sold you if they misrepresented the product as you've been using it. You know, maybe you can get your fees back, cost to making it what they represented it as.
Well, I mean, I think that would go back to Taylor Investment, because in the covenants, it says it's an established controlled lot.
Purchased from it. They represented it to you that you had lake access when you really didn't.
Well, I think everyone, I think they were under that assumption because the covenants were recorded with that language in there. And so I think that's where everyone is like, oh, we have a lake lot and we have.
I'm sure the price was commensurate with what they were representing it as.
And then again, so the other, back to the development going in front of the planning commission, would they, and to Eric, to your point, they would not have, they didn't have to get approval from the planning commission to create this development with this controlled access lot?
As I've mentioned to you before, an access lot at that time required a conditional use permit. No such application was submitted to the county. And how the development occurred, I can't say. You know, there's no record of it other than the department started issuing permits for it a year or two after the lot started to be sold. But
So a plat was never brought in front of the, besides the one that was withdrawn, obviously the planning commission didn't see it, but there was no other plat that was put forth in front of the planning commission.
correct.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, if you guys repurchase that, I mean, obviously if I purchase a lake lot, I'm not required to get a permit to purchase the lot. It's only until you actually do something on the property that you'd have to look at the ordinance and decide whether, when you start using it or modifying it, then you have to look through the ordinance to make sure there's nothing required of you.
Okay. Okay, I don't think I have anything further.
Well, you need a motion to deny the, I'll make a motion to accept the planning commission's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks for the discussion.
All right, thanks. Yep.
All right. Anything else, Eric?
No, I'll stay for the discussion on the Deep Lake matter.
Yeah, you know, just say that's one of the pros and cons of these things. We just experienced it. All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, Jeff, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got Eric and Corey here because when the variance application was submitted for Deep Lake Park for the the building of the road and the driveway, it was submitted with a certain understanding of what the ordinary high water mark was. And as a natural environmental lake, there's no published ordinary high water level for that lake, right? So the SRF engineering estimated an ordinary high water mark, which they drew and they showed only to be get in the way of the proposed roadway and parking area for this 260-foot area. Just between these two yellow hash lines. When we went out this spring when environmental services staff went out and staked out the ordinary high water mark, almost the entire area is within the 150-foot setback. When I went out with staff again yesterday, I said, where are we determining the ordinary high water mark? And one of the staff members demonstrated where she had done the measurement from before, and then I asked the other staff member, and he said, well, it could really be here, and it could really be here. So it's not where it was established and where we found we were in conflict with this was not, was a man-made cutting for that trail down by the lake. And then we went to the other side and we identified areas based on the other requirements that determine how ordinary high water mark is set, vegetation, erosion, other criteria. We moved it back. The estimates that were used to determine this was the only place we had a problem probably looked very much like this. And in this condition, I drew this line on the boundary of the lake, and I moved it in 150 feet from 2 feet above the lake level. This lake level is identified as 1,446 feet, so I moved this into 1,447 to 1,448, and came to the same conclusion that we only really needed a variance on this amount of the project. So the two things that I'm suggesting is that the ordinary high water mark on a lake that hasn't been set at a fixed elevation is subject to interpretation. We always know that. And that interpretation made by the engineer who drew this plan and put this picture into the variance application, if he would have said we need a variance to 130 feet on the entire length of the project, for all the reasons identified in the staff report, it would have been granted. Because of the preliminary difficulty that to reestablish parking in an area, and you can see that in this picture, the old building and the limits of the parking were all within that developed area. So the staff report that suggests that to put a road and a parking and improve that in an area that was already used for that purpose would be significantly less of a disturbance than to cut into this hillside. So in order to get a 62-foot wide parking area, if we have to stay outside of the 150, we have to cut into this hillside, which is 25 feet tall. That just is a lot of. The urgency of this is the contractor was selected, hired for this, they're on site. They're doing this work, and because of this issue, Corey had a conversation and said, start at the road and work your way down. So I do not know what the options are available to us at this point. Eric identified that if we need to ask for a new variance, we'd have to wait till the current EAW process is completed, which is going to be a long time. There's two alternatives: either to administratively adjust the variance to reestablish where the ordinary high water mark is so that it looks more representative of this, or to not do this part of the project until such point as that is cleared up. Now, if we don't do that project in this amount of time, we may be giving back grant funds.
So if I hear you correctly, Jeff, this is an interpretation that even staff realizes that there's room to fluctuate on, correct?
Where the stakes were placed 10 days ago and where they agreed to place the stakes yesterday are two different spots.
Yeah.
And how many feet do you pick up?
At this point right here where the pavilion, where the picnic shelter and the corner of the parking lot are, we are fully outside of the 150. By the time we get to about here, we're at about 143 feet. And when we get to here, we're about 132 feet.
So why did the staff decide to place the stakes at a different spot?
It was two different staff that went the first day
Yep.
than it was yesterday. And I was there because I was also looking for the answer saying, this is subject to interpretation.
Yep.
And the spot that we agreed to use yesterday is still 4 feet above the current water level of that lake.
And on that blue line, SRF actually had a crew go out there and do wetland delineation, and that's where they put the line, is that where that blue line is. So everything originally was going to fit within the setback, but yeah, with different interpretations of it, it's changed a little bit. But if we would have known, we would have for sure added that into the variance.
And
request.
the truth of the matter is, it should have all been included in the variance request anyway, because it was that close to the line. And if we're gonna disturb stuff as we're doing the work, you know, when we drew the limits of, with the help of environmental services staff, this parking area is 62 feet wide to accomplish parking on both sides and a lane down the center. We went within 6 feet of this bluff. We left 6 feet of flat round that bluff and then measured 66 feet to get us to the limits to allow for the disturbance of the working areas to get to the 62-foot width. Which I think was, the unfortunate thing is we didn't have this conversation last fall as we were putting this together. Because if we had done this last fall as we were putting this together, we would have simply said the easiest thing to do is to say the practical disability to stay off this bluff is to go with the 130-foot variance on the setback here, and we would have been perfectly fine.
I feel that what we're looking at here, so the area that's in question isn't necessarily a parking area, but the part of the driveway?
No, it is the parking area. Right now, this, between the two yellow lines
Okay,
is where the variance was requested and granted.
okay,
And it is from this point to this point, I can't really show that, but you can see where the mouse is, where we are not outside of 150, but we are always outside of 130.
okay. Yeah, and then, I guess my feeling is that if we would have gone back in time and known that we needed to ask for a 130-foot variance, it would have probably gone through.
Yep.
And now to take the shortcut and correct this, what do we do?
It would require a new variance application for that area.
Okay,
And how would we address it if it was a private property owner? Would we do the same
point.
fashion?
Yep, that's the process you would have to go through, because to not do that, you're not allowing the public an opportunity for due process and participation in the hearing.
and Steve brought up a good point, what would we do if we were individual, if it was a private party, and as a county, I guess we should be following
Yeah.
that standard.
So do you want me to stop construction now or at the limit where we cross the line?
So if you pick the most favorable spot for the ordinary high water mark, would it fit?
Yes.
See, what I'm struggling with is, the DNR has not established an ordinary high mark, and you have staff people that aren't even in agreement where it is. And so,
Pick the most favorable.
Well, ultimately, it's the DNR area hydrologist who has the legal authority to call where the OHW is. And we haven't had the area hydrologist out, so that would be an option.
Does the wetland delineation have any standing or bearing that was done in that area?
I'm sure that report could be provided to the hydrologist for part of consideration, but, you know,
But not in time to complete this?
I'd have to talk to the hydro to see, what their timeline might be for being able to come out and,
So if we pick the
Look
most
at it.
favorable spot for the ordinary high water mark, so everything fits based on that, and we find out later that it doesn't, then we come back and ask for a variance for the rest.
And after the fact.
I didn't want to say that.
One other thing I want to just mention is historically that area was used as a parking area for Velchatels, so it's not like I know it hasn't been used for 20, 30 years, but we're not changing what was the original use of that area.
You're actually making it less.
Yeah, right now there's bricks and stuff like, there's probably actually more pollution there right now than we would have on a fresh impervious surface. So my honest opinion would be an amendment to the variance that I first made with what SRF had as the wetland setback or water setback, but there's about $1 million tied up into this project, and they're already working in there, and I'd rather see them stay there and never come back, so. That's my opinion.
That's why I suggested the,
Mm-hmm.
The most favorable.
But it is a historically used parking lot, we're just improving it.
You can remove the building sitting right next to the lake.
Yeah, well, we've actually been a lot better on the environment by what we've done in the last 2 years than what it was, so.
who's to say picking the most favorable ordinary high water mark doesn't turn out to be correct?
Yeah,
And like I say, if it had gone through, if we would have requested this to begin with, you know, if you look at the improvements we've made with removing the lodge, removing the theater area, whatever you wanna call it, I mean, we've improved the property.
mm-hmm,
You know, and that could have been a condition, you know, you can be granted this, but you have to do this. Well, we've already done this. But I'm inclined to agree with David.
It's taxpayer dollars that's funding this outside of the grant. So if we stop construction
Gonna cost more.
and then lose the grant, it's gonna cost the taxpayer a lot more money.
The picnic shelter and this end of the parking lot are outside of the 150,
Yep.
so we can do that. We would essentially have to not do half of the parking area. Since we are not paving it, I don't know what work there is to be done there, but we're talking about 100 yards times 30 feet, 100 yards by 10 yards, so 1,000 yards of improvement. Commissioner Karen probably has an idea what that is. I mean, it's tens of thousands of dollars that would have to be done later if we strictly uphold to where the line has been drawn at this point. Not $1 million. The balance of it can be done. It is unfortunate that we don't have ways to correct these things when we find out that we have competing information.
mm-hmm.
I have taxpayers who are eager to see a picnic area in there and parking lot and be able to use it as such.
Well, the picnic area can be done because it is staked outside of the 150. It's staked outside of the 150 that was established 2 weeks ago. So it is very much clear of that.
So you talk about competing information, you're talking about where the ordinary high water mark, one says here, one says potentially here, so which one's right?
Well, that's
That's-
my question, and in the staff report, didn't you recommend that this would be passed?
No, the staff report suggested that
Or what
that
was.
the variance
Here it is,
requested
okay.
was less intrusive than cutting into
Okay,
that bluff.
all right, thank you.
Which
'Cause I-
would be the same on the next 260 feet
Yes.
as it was on the 260 that was granted.
Okay, I
It
didn't.
wasn't asked because this line that was drawn based on the wetland delineation suggested that the parking lot was outside of the 150.
Okay.
So if we're unsure about where to place the ordinary high water mark, it seems like, and there's compelling reasons for either spot, it's like a flip of a coin then. It's just, who determined it at that particular day? So pick the more favorable ordinary high water mark and move on.
Would you pick the most favorable or the most restrictive,
I've,
in your opinion?
my staff showed me the photos they took yesterday, and I've reviewed those, and with where they landed with what Jeff explained, I agree with where they've said the OHW is. There is, you know, as was mentioned, there isn't an established elevation OHW on this lake, and the reason for that is this was the only development on it, so the DNR is not gonna spend the time to do that. The only way to get a legal binding where is the OHW is to have the DNR area hydrologist go out there and make that call. My staff have done the best they can, but they don't have the true legal authority to do that. It would be the area hydrologist that does.
And does the hydrologist plan to come and do this anyhow, or are they probably, there again with only one landowner, not worry about it?
When they're asked, they will come out and do that. We're currently without our local hydrologist, so we'd be relying on the hydrologist located in Detroit Lakes who's covering our area until that position is filled, so they'd be the one to come out and make that determination. But with where staff found the OHW yesterday, it's the closest to the lake of the two locations that had been determined by staff, and from what staff relayed to me, from that point to the 150-foot setback, there's still a portion of the parking lot that would be within the setback. The issue on my end with my department is if we do something that's not compliant with the ordinance, it really makes it difficult for us to tell private landowners that they need to comply with the ordinance.
Yeah, there is a lot of terrain too, so it could be. But we did pay SRF quite a bit of money to make this wetland delineation, the wetland setback. They went out with engineers, and I guess that's just what we originally ran off of. So there is a lot of taxpayer dollars into that, into their wetland setback line. And that's what we.
Request to Stuart to send us a copy of that wetland delineation so that we can identify how they determine that.
Yep.
Truth be told, none of it is gonna get this parking lot done while they're here this time.
And yeah, so.
I can't get the hydrologist out here. We can't apply for a variance. I can't review the ordinary high water and the wetland delineation in that period of time, which means that we're just gonna have to say that the element that's outside of the 150-foot setback from this, basically this made-up blue line, which is, because this is how we determine that, right? We have no coordinates on that. We have no, so it's a made-up blue line, but it certainly doesn't extend up to here. So this extra 260 feet of parking lot, like I said, from about here to here is where there's a problem. So if we just don't do the parking lots outside of that area and determine that we have to do that later, then we still get the picnic shelter and we still get parking. I am not one to make an exception. I was just here to suggest that there is discrepancy in determining ordinary high water when it's not set, and that we were, honestly, I believe we were given poor advice. This should have been asked, the variance should have been asked for the entire project out here on this peninsula. And they're under the same conditions that it was granted, it would have been granted if we said we asked for a 130-foot setback all along here, because these buildings were 20 feet from the property line. And exactly all of the elements that Eric and his staff identified in the staff report that says it would be less disruptive to grant the 20-foot variance than it would be to cut into this mound, they would have approved the whole thing. It would have reduced a lot of practical difficulties. So, I guess lessons learned on all sides. Not having an administrative option to fix something like this. You asked for us to count the number of ways that our rules get in the way of people developing property within Hubbard County. Here's one. Here's one. We just had another one earlier. And I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't have the rules and that we shouldn't take the ordinance and we shouldn't make sure that we are following those things. I will tell you the whole EAW rules, we should call for the abolishment of that, because if you'd seen how they changed from 2022 to this year, and all the carbon footprint estimation that we have to do here, I get it down in the Twin Cities where you got a population density of 2,000 people per square mile. We have a population density of 20 people per square mile. Our capacity to influence the carbon footprint is not existent. Yet, we have to pay the same price as they do in our determination and the work and the engineering we do. So I'm perfectly happy to simply go out and identify that 150-foot mark and work with SRF and tell them those are outside the boundaries. That's going to have to get picked up later. We're still going to have a parking lot. We're still going to have a picnic shelter, and we'll have to do the rest of that road when we're back down doing another road, which would be phase 2 when we're doing the road for the campground in 2 to 20 years, depending on funding.
How many grant dollars do we lose?
That'll have to talk to Gordon to
We
see.
may or may not lose any grant dollars, if we can allocate them to other administrative costs.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
But Steve, you may be able to tell me, if we've got 1,000 feet, if we've got 300 feet, which is 100 yards, times 20 feet, which is 7 yards, so we've got 700 yards of work that we're not gonna do from this project. It's not a big portion of the project.
No.
Picking it up later is gonna cost tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay.
I do agree with Steve and Eric that we need to, if, we need to do what we would ask the public to do. I personally would like the DNR to come out and establish the high water mark. And that way then your staff has a definite mark to measure from.
This is likely the only development that's gonna be within
I
that
get
150 foot.
But still then, we've done our due diligence.
There's no chance that any preliminary work, moving of topsoil or anything, could be done in that area that's affected by this. Outside of the 150 feet. You can't even move topsoil, correct? For the area of the parking lot that isn't in compliance.
Yeah, the ordinance doesn't allow a parking lot to be within the setback. There's some grading that could be done within the setback. It gets, in a gray area,
Okay.
because, presumably that's being prep work done for getting the parking lot, but
Well, with
they could.
adequate erosion measures being taken, silt fence, hydroseed, the spoil pile, so to say, could that area be prepped in anticipation of either applying for a variance or having the hydrologist come out so that they could actually do partial amount of the work? And then maybe later on, Corey's department with coordination of the highway department could get the material there to finish off the parking lot until after the point where we would get a variance. I'm assuming it would be approved, because granted, it would have been included in the first place, but I don't wanna go ahead and do a bunch of work that, that's in violation. I mean, then, like Eric was saying, well, I don't even have the rules,
It's a pseudo-existing parking lot now.
Yeah,
So
I know.
if you just, when you're landscaping out there and laying your seed down, you assume where the parking lot's gonna be. You do what you can do, and then the assumed part that you can't do yet, don't seed it. Just leave it.
Well, essentially what we do is we'd have to cut 20 feet off, which is the parking, is 20 parking spaces.
Yeah.
This is programmed for 50 parking spaces.
Well, people are gonna park there anyhow.
And people are gonna park there anywhere. That's exactly my point. So I would rather,
Literally, we are following.
I would rather not do any work inside the variance
Right.
than to do, can we do this much of the work and then come back later? If this is the call, then I would just make this a one-sided parking area that people are gonna park on both sides if it gets busy, because there's nothing stopping them from doing that.
Could, I don't know if it's a possibility, but could you guys vote on, like, if, to agree to accept the SRF setback, so we wouldn't have any issue?
No,
That's
I
not a
wouldn't even ask him
possibility.
I wouldn't even ask him to do that because that is, that's
Yeah,
usurping. If I were to ask anybody to do that, it'd be the planning commission on
sure.
Monday night.
Okay, yeah,
We'd-
yeah,
We'd be getting in a bad legal
yeah,
places.
yeah. Yep, no, that sounds good.
If I asked anybody to do that, it would be the planning commission to just take a look at the wetland delineation to see if that changed where the limits of the 150-foot are from where they have been placed. And they will say no.
Just add to just
Yeah.
do what you can within the variance we have.
Yep.
And do not see the spot that you think the parking lot's gonna grow to.
Yep.
And call it a day for now.
Yep, yeah, we'll just have to flag it off and,
But in
And
the
then we come
meantime,
back.
you're gonna have to establish the high water mark.
Get the high water mark established and then
Yep.
determine whether we need to go ask for another variance to finish up the rest of what we
Mhm.
want done.
yeah, I think that would work out
So
fine.
people are gonna drive down there and it's gonna look very similar to the same.
Yeah.
park where they're gonna park.
And I'm guessing they're gonna, a lot of times
Until
park
you
where
get
they want
vegetation
anyways.
Established that prevents it.
Right. Which is not part of this phase of the project.
Yeah, we'll just flag off the area that, yeah, that'll work out.
Since it's not gonna be bituminous surface, that helps us, I guess.
Yeah,
It is being prepped to be paved at a later date. But it's, the paving is not even a part of phase two
Yeah.
application. Because the intention is to make it functional before we would worry about spending $1 million on asphalt. Or at this point,
Do we need any type of motion?
I don't think we need any action.
I just
We're
needed-
gonna act within
I
what
needed
they have
both
authority
boards to
do.
understand the situation we were
Yeah,
in.
okay.
And I hear loud and clear that we want to do
Sure.
what the variance allows us to do, and we'll work with SRF to stake that out. We staked out those spaces yesterday. Actually, what we did is we staked out the limits of the construction and how far they were from the variance, so we can back those up to get us to that point.
So as Char was saying, are we planning on having the hydrologist come and take a look and make their determination?
Yes, I will.
So then for any future development, we know what the OHW is.
Yeah, I will contact the area hydrologist and ask for him to come out and do that assessment for us.
And
And I-
that's the most fair way for your staff also.
Because, yeah, whatever they say is legally what it is.
And you just do the measurement after that.
And when I was out with staff yesterday, I completely agreed that where they were picking that 150 from was completely reasonable. And I said, and that next little level where there's another shelf from previous water usage, wave usage, whatever, could also be used. I said, but the one we chose up here last week, that was man-made. That was never done by the lake level.
So what if the hydrologist picks a high water mark that makes everything not fit? And we're asking for an after-effect variance. Unless you're reasonably comfortable that it would be,
I don't think, knowing that hydrologist, I don't think he's gonna take a extreme placement of where the OHW is.
yeah, I know him pretty good too, so I can talk to him too if you want me to.
Well, Eric's office would be the one that would ask for a determination of the OHW, right? And then they'd put it on their list. They don't
Based on-
need to advance it, they just put it on their list to do
Based on the
when they
knowledge
can.
of that time, and now we're asking for further, but we still
based
have
on
this
an ordinary high
variance.
water mark that we don't know.
Right. But we do have a variance granted, so if it's after the fact,
It'd be an amendment.
it'd be an amendment.
We're doing it based on the information we know.
We do,
Yep.
we are, yes.
Yeah, and I'll keep Gordon's just working on the road for now and, yeah, go from there.
Ask the question.
We'll have to get SRF back down here.
Yep.
And stake the corners of the limits of the project. And then we're gonna have to change the scope of the project to eliminate 25 spots for now.
All right.
Just an FYI, that's
Yeah.
what I've been doing for the last few days. At least it was windy out there, but it was warm.
Stuff happens. Yeah. It'll all be fine.
Yep.
Thank you to you
All
both.
right. Anything else, Jeff?
I don't have anything unless you have questions. I will mention, my 5-year review will be coming up at our next meeting. And Mary will be sending you that information sometime before the end of the week, so we can do that in a closed session, first meeting in May.
All right.
We also have to pick the, who's gonna be at the managers meeting?
What's that?
Who's gonna be at the managers meeting?
Oh, yeah. Department head meeting. Whose turn is it? You filled in.
Thanks, sir.
I did the last one.
You did the last one. You covered for me last time. So who's next?
I'm thinking Steve, but
Well, I haven't been there since I was chair, so
Okay, so then I'll do.
that's what,
A.
3 months?
So you're up.
Okay, and I'll
Okay,
just
all
note
right.
All right.
A, okay.
Committee reports. Who wants to go first?
I'll start, because mine's really short. So I had a compliance meeting for Prime West, and found out their elderly waiver, which allows people to stay in their homes, covers a variety of services, which includes lawn care
Hmm?
and snow removal, putting in a ramp, cutting down trees, or indoor chores. And so, you know, we've had discussions about how wonderful it is people can stay in their homes, and yet sometimes they stay in their homes too long, and then they have all these maintenance issues by the time the house goes on the market. Well, this adds another dimension of interest when you're talking about the entire picture. And the reason this came up is because someone complained to Prime West about their lawn care provider that Prime West was paying for. So I just thought that was really interesting. And then,
it's like, how do we share that with the public that needs it?
yeah, and I'm not opposed to this. I was just surprised. I didn't know that elderly waiver covered all that. Talk some more about fraud. There's been lottery tickets that's been given away for people to either sign up and say they received services that haven't, or, yeah. They just got an application for a business to do, I think it was elder care. So they started looking into it, and with Google, you know, you can look on the map, and you can see the building, which looked like it was vacant. And they did some further inquiries, and there's 5 tax IDs associated with that building for services that's vacant. But they also said that part of the fraud on University Avenue, I guess, they had 169, the state had 169 approved businesses at one location. So it just gives further insight to the fraud. And obviously, Prime West was not gonna take this provider on. But Prime West goes way over and above to really vet out stuff. And so it's just an example, another example of how this goes out the door. So really interesting, that's all I have.
I just had one item, and that was, I sat in on the legislative update the other day, and really, basically more of the same, you know, just an update on, they gotta get some stuff done here pretty quick, because they don't have a lot of time.
No, they don't.
No. Steve, you got anything?
Yeah, I had a couple. First one was the opioid committee group, making a little headway and trying to develop a guideline for applications. It's kind of a slow process. There's a lot of voices at the table, so you're trying to take into account everybody. And there's different viewpoints, I guess, on where the money should be spent, excuse me, or how it should be spent. So hopefully that gets streamlined here, and we can finally start taking some requests for proposals for grant dollars here in the future, maybe by this fall, maybe next year, for the first grants can be awarded. So we're just slowly working forward to that. The other one I had an ambulance committee meeting. We just established chair, vice chair, and then took care of some regular business, but then the quarterly report that North gave was kind of interesting. I'm always looking at, you know, response time reports and how much time are they doing mutual aid calls and try to figure out how much time is that ambulance actually taken out of Walker and used somewhere else and outside of the district. Because I know there was talk that there's individuals who would like to see a second ambulance somewhere in the district, but there's no agreement where it would be or anything like that if it was to be established. So we'll just see how the first period of time goes here before that need is, I guess, identified or maybe not implemented at all. So, yeah, we actually have operating capital now. The Leech Lake Band deposited their portion of the payment, so we're using that as capital for paying all our bills and everything right now. So that was helpful. I was glad to see that, so we're not running a line of credit and perhaps paying interest and everything on it. So other than that, that's all I had.
I have one question. I was on the call, the opioid call, and do we need to establish that as a committee? Because part of the discussion was who's gonna pay for the time of the people that are on the board.
We did establish that as a committee of the board. We have not,
We just haven't assigned who is on it
we
in the committee.
we assigned the two commissioners to
Yeah.
that committee. We have not determined if they're gonna, like planning commission, parks board, we pay per diems and we pay other items. We have not established that for this committee.
I thought our discussion was that the county would cover the two commissioners, and then like Angie Hip would, or somebody would cover, do you see what I'm saying?
For like training and anything
Well,
like that,
and
or?
even attending the meetings. Everyone was kinda gonna do their own thing. Did I misunderstand that?
Well, to some extent, because the question was about whether or not there's a meeting in Wilmer next week.
Yep, yeah, I remember that.
And if the committee was gonna cover the cost of attendance and travel and all of that for that, and we had never made a provision for that. That was the first time that conversation came up. Because we've made this a committee of Hubbard County, if one of the commissioners or one of the staff of the county went.
Right, that
then
would be covered.
Then they could cover that, or they could ask for reimbursement of the
Yes.
travel cost for that.
Yep.
We've made no arrangements for any of the other members of that committee to have funds, have county funds available, or even to have settlement funds available for that. We talked that would be something we could do, but didn't come to consensus on whether or not they wanted to do that.
Oh, and I misunderstood, because I thought the consensus was we were all just gonna kinda handle from the
The
areas that we were representing.
The consensus was that we were not gonna spend settlement funds on those
Yes,
costs.
yes. Okay.
I don't
thank
think
you.
everybody committed that they were gonna have funds to bring from their other agencies.
Yeah.
Many on the committee, that's part of their job. It's not
Well, that's what,
Yeah.
versus
that's what I was
volunteers.
getting at, yeah. Yep,
So they're compensated.
yep.
There are a couple that would be, I guess so to say, volunteers. They aren't part of an organization that probably funds their activities, but I was more curious about commissioner-wise, if we wanted to go to that training, would the opioid funds be able to be used to compensate for that or to pay for registration and whatnot? And when I talked to Angela afterwards, and she said that her HIP funds would cover registration and whatnot. I have interest in going just to find more out. But I was gonna leave it up to her if she thought it was allowable under her organization that she would cover the registration costs. And then I wouldn't charge any per diem or anything like that for going.
We could charge that cost against the 05 account,
Yeah.
because we said that's a committee of the Hubbard County Board. So if you wanna go, you can register and go and put it on your regular claims form, because that committee has now the same standing as the other committees that you participate in.
Yeah, I was gonna wait to see what Angela says and then make my determination after that.
All right, anything else? Tom?
Well, I had the same ambulance committee, and Steve covered all that pretty well. I also had mental health board, but I don't think I have anything new to report on that. about it for me.
And I just had Northwest Minnesota Juvenile Center, was the executive board meeting. Very short agenda. Part of it had to do with the employees, so I can't discuss that at all. Financial reports were all right. We are picking up, things are picking up this time of year. Superintendent's expenses, Mindy went to a conference, so there was that. Talked about the brush piles that were left there from the storm of last year. The Conservation Corps, I believe out of Bagley, was actually the ones that burnt those piles with the guy, with the Bemidji Fire Department standing watch. The Juvenile Center also got a $77,000 grant for green space. That was from the Bemidji Area Service Collaborative. And so that grant will be used in creating some green space in the rec area, but also in the gardens that we have there at the Juvenile Center. And we talked about the policies that we continually have to update. That's all I got.
Meetings coming up.
Department head next Tuesday at 9.
Department head, the AMC district meeting will be the first week of June, but I don't think we've seen that yet, and that's a month out.
All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Jeff, have you touched base with Sean